Hello and welcome to Twisted Britain, a podcast on true crime in Britain with a sprinkling of the weird and the macabre. And your hosts are me, Bob Dale.
And me, Nadine Royal. We're a couple of friends who met in the pub and developed a friendship based on our mutual love of booze, podcasts and pub quizzes. We met in the Settle Inn in Stirling, and that's where we record.
Each week we'll both tell a story of something twisted. One long story and one short one. We'll decide who goes first.
Based on the flip of a coin.
Before we get to the flip of the coin, which I'll get out of my pocket now.
What's it going to be this week? A £2 coin?
Oh no, don't be daft. I've not got any of them. A 2p.
Ooh.
2p. We're stretching it. I was just going to say about our murder mystery thing that we did in Stirling this week. So myself and a group of friends and my young son in a pram took part in an augmented reality type murder mystery day where we had to download an app and follow it around Stirling, and it was really cool because it was like you signed in and then you had to go and get like witness testimonies off loads of like virtual people.
Yeah.
But to get the testimony, you had to answer a quiz question, and it was really cool because you actually go around your town and look up at stuff you wouldn't normally look at. We were quite proud of ourselves. We went around and gathered everything, went to the pub for a pint, made notes, managed to eliminate loads of folk, found the murder weapon.
Did you solve it?
We solved it in 2 hours and 4 minutes.
That's okay.
And we thought, that's not bad. That's not bad at all. Then we looked at the leaderboard and the guys that had won it were like an hour and 2 minutes. I do not have.
They must have been sprinting.
Well, they've either sprinted or there's been more than one phone involved, but I'm not casting aspersions at all. It was really cool fun though. We bumped into you halfway around.
We bumped into each other. I would have joined you had I not been feeling under the weather that day.
Another ill morning for Nadine.
No, it looked fun, and it was such a beautiful day for it as well, so sunny.
It was cool. It was good fun, actually. And then later on that day, you and I...
Yeah, we went out and about.
With our new pod cards.
Met some folks.
Nice, shiny new pod cards that we got that we've popped up on Twitter and Instagram for anybody to have a look at. Bloody Scotland was on in Stirling over the weekend.
Yeah, so it's this big true crime kind of festival, isn't it? Like for authors and... Is it just authors? No,
there was a couple of podcast recordings went on and some shows of different varieties and stuff. But it was cool.
Some big names in Stirling over the weekend.
Indeed. And we handed out a good number of our cards to people, and hopefully we'll get...
Had a quite nice reception. Hopefully some of you are listening. Hey, if you are.
Hello.
Sorry for accosting you.
Yeah, sorry about that, but well, here you are now. How's your... you're on Long Story this week.
I'm on Long Story this week, yeah.
Always my favourite week when you're on Long Story. How you gotten on?
Yeah, okay, I think. So this is a story that I heard about ages ago, and it's a story I loved. I loved it from the moment I heard about it, and it was all over the news. You'll definitely have heard about it. Well, I hope you will have. But it's like a mystery again, but in the best kind of sense of a mystery almost.
I do
Still
love
a victim and stuff. And
do love a mystery.
Yeah, it's good. And I've been toying with the idea of doing it since we started this. Like, it's always been on my list of got to do that one. And then I wasn't going to do it until I was trying to work out what I was going to do. And every time I Googled different things that kept on coming up, fate.
Well, you got to do it.
So I got to do it.
You got to do it.
So here we go. How was yours?
Good. I had a day at work today where I'd forgotten to take my computer and I was going to finish everything at lunchtime. So a bit of a rush when I got in the house to get the last kind of stuff printed off. And, you get the normal faff with a printer and everything, but yeah, it's a really cool story. And actually, when I walked into the pub tonight and we met a guy who was asking about what we were doing, he knew pretty much more about the story than I do already, having researched it for the last couple of days. Oops. But mine has some facts in it, and we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, I'm sure it'll be fine. Should we just get to it?
Let's go for it.
Flip the coin.
Right, you call it.
I can't remember what I called last week. So heads, you go.
Heads it is.
Ooh.
So I'm up first.
Back to winning for me.
So this is the story of the Siege of Sidney Street.
It's not ringing any bells.
Right, so Sidney Street is in the east area of London. And this is basically the story of a gunfight that happened in Sidney Street between the police, the army, and a gang of Latvians.
Oh, okay.
On the 3rd of January, 1911.
Oh, you're going always historical just now.
I like the history stuff, though, yeah. It's also nobody's alive to correct me, so we'll go with that as well. So although it happened on the 3rd of January 1911, it kind of everything had started about a month beforehand.
Okay.
There'd been an attempted jewellery heist in Houndsditch, and a Latvian gang had tried to rob Henry Samuel Harris Jewellers. The safe in the building was said to have contained between £20,000 and £30,000 worth of diamonds, which I've done it again, in today's money is between 2.2 million and 3.3 million pounds worth of diamonds.
God.
However, later on, the son of the owner in an interview had said there was only £7,000 worth of diamonds in it. So that would be, well, I've not done this one, about £800,000 in diamonds, something like that.
Jeez, though, that's still loads.
Yeah, still enough. So there'd been a long planning process with the Latvian gang. Now, I didn't write a lot of this down about the gang because they were of Russian Latvian descent.
Okay.
And London at the time had a big area of kind of Jewish settlers from that part of the world.
Okay.
So there was a kind of almost like a Chinatown almost type area, but for Jewish Latvian and Russians.
Okay.
So they were just kind of they kept themselves within their communities and everything. So these guys had become a kind of criminal gang, and as such, they'd rented a building in a cul-de-sac behind the jewellers. They tried to rent number 10 in the cul-de-sac because that backed straight on to the jewellers, but they couldn't get that. They managed to get number 11. So the garden had some overlap with the back of the building, but it wasn't the one they'd been looking for.
Right.
So so that was at the beginning of December 1910. And over 2 weeks, the gang amassed a whole load of stuff to get together to go and do the heist, the burglary. And on the evening of the 16th of December, the gang started their attempt to break through the back wall of the jewellers. But the neighbouring property on the Jewellers Street, not on the cul-de-sac, had heard some banging and had gone out to look at what was going on and seen there was... Basically, they were trying to smash through the brick wall in the back, and they alerted the police to it. So several unarmed officers arrived at the scene, and one of them tried to enter the building where he was killed by the gang because they were all carrying weapons.
Right.
This escalated to pretty much a full-on gun battle in the street outside the jewellers, with another 3 officers being killed. The killing of the police officers kind of enraged the country, and it was named the Houndsditch Murders. Now, I've kind of skipped over the whole story of the Houndsditch Murders because I may actually go back to it and cover it because the story itself there is pretty cool.
Yeah.
We do another short story on that one and see me looking up a whole load of stuff.
We need to start keeping a list of the things we keep saying, like, oh yeah, we'll do that, we'll do that.
I've got a list of mine.
Have you done it?
Yeah.
I've not. I'll need to listen again.
If I kept a list of yours, I'd end up doing them. Like I say, so there was a full-on gun battle and another 3 police officers were killed. So it was 4 police officers in total were killed. There was also one member of the gang dead at the scene. The rest of the gang, which from all accounts I could read was another 2 or 3. And I say 2 or 3 because there's a guy mentioned who has almost become a myth.
Okay.
Peter the Painter, but loads of folk don't think he actually existed and he was kind of a front name for the gang. So I haven't actually...
Peter the Painter?
Yeah, I've not actually focused on him at all in this. And I'll maybe go back and do a kind of not an edit, but a sub bit in the future on it because I kind of just stuck to the story of the actual siege.
Totally fair.
So 2 of them, let's go with 2 of them escaped.
Okay.
And they managed to pretty much elude the police for about 2 weeks after that initial gun battle. So as was per protocol, the City of London Police informed the Metropolitan Police Force, and both services were issued revolvers to all the detectives involved in the search. So the investigation was difficult, and mainly because, like I said, they're all Russian and Latvian descent.
Yeah.
And nobody on the police force spoke Russian, Latvian, or Yiddish.
Okay.
So that kind of hampered them a bit because obviously they couldn't speak to the locals about we're looking for these people or whatever. And there was a fairly good descriptions and posters and everything put up because there was other police officers there at the initial gun battle.
Right.
So like you say, there was posters put up everywhere looking for information, and the investigation went on until New Year's Day when a member of the public came forward with a tip-off that 2 members of the gang were hiding out at 100 Sidney Street.
Okay.
Now the informant has said that's where he thought they were, and the police managed to convince him to go back to the property
not cool.
the following day and confirm that they still were there. So they were still there.
I don't think I'd be any good at that. Like playing it cool. Hey, just thought I'd pop round and say hey, and I don't really have a reason for being here. See you later.
Do you happen to still be in?
No, goodbye.
So they were there with a lodger as well.
Right.
Her name was... Give me a second. I have written it down somewhere, so we'll come back.
Your second's up. What's her name?
Well, we'll come back to her. So, they were still at the property.
Okay.
And over the next 24 hours, the police put a plan into place and managed to amass a massive force of police officers.
Mm-hmm. Well, I bet, especially if there's like a few dead.
Yeah, there was no love lost here at all. So over 200 police officers were put together.
Blimey.
And on a midnight of the morning of
For 2 guys?
Well, they didn't know how many people
Right.
were there. They knew that these guys were armed and dangerous.
Right.
And like I say, they'd killed other police officers. Mm-hmm. So yeah, 200 members of the police were moved that night at midnight to 100 to outside 100 Sidney Street. So they were at either end of the street.
Mm-hmm.
They'd put armed police officers at number 111, which was directly opposite the property. And throughout the night, the residents of the houses in the entire block and everywhere around were woken and evacuated from the area. So by the morning, the only house that had anybody in it was 100 Sidney Street. Now, it was 2 houses, so there was an upstairs apartment and a downstairs house. So in the morning, the police woke the residents of the ground floor flat, I guess, and asked them to fetch Betty Gerson, who was the lodger. And they asked her to go and get her out of the flat. And they used the kind of ruse that her husband was really sick.
Okay.
And they needed to take her away.
Why would she be lodging somewhere for her husband? Whatever, cool.
For work or whatever,
Yeah,
so your husband's sick, you need to come with us.
Yeah.
And so her and the ground...
Imagine how good imagine if she opened the door and they're like, Betty, your husband's sick, you need to come. And she's like, I'm not married. And they're like, Betty, your husband's sick.
Yeah.
Wink, wink.
Come with us. Come on now. So they managed to get her out and they were rushed away. Her and the ground floor residents were rushed away, leaving only the 2 gang members in the building. So that was really daybreak, kind of dawn kind of time. And at around 7:30 a.m., and I love this, it just shows how much of a different time it was. The police tried to knock the door.
There's chap on it. Hey.
Hi, you guys coming out to play? Obviously, there was no answer to it.
Yeah.
So at that point, they also kind of determined that there was really narrow passageway running up to the front door of the house, and they kind of thought, well, we can't stay here too long because we know they're armed.
Yeah.
And it's just it's a death trap if we keep them there because the police officers are just going to get mown down.
Yeah. I'm still not over just knocking on the door, knock, knock, cooey.
Hi. So, even better, when they didn't answer the door, they went outside and threw stones at the window.
Oh, excellent.
and tried to kind of rouse a response that way, and that worked. The 2 gang members came to the window.
Excellent.
And pretty much looked out the window and went, oh shit, there's a load of police in the street. And they just started firing into the street at the police.
Fair.
Pretty much straight away. It didn't take long for the police to realise that the armed gang had much more superior weapons than the police did.
Oh, yeah?
They had automatic weapons where the police just had revolvers.
Right.
They managed to shoot and injure a police officer pretty early on in the siege, which became eventually a 6-hour standoff.
God.
So 9 a.m. comes round and the police go, right, we've had enough. They've got better guns than us. They've got more than enough ammo up there, obviously, to stay up there because they just didn't stop shooting.
Yeah.
Some reports say by this point they had unleashed 400 rounds in the street in an hour and a half.
God.
So the Home Office was contacted. The police asked headquarters to contact the Home Office.
Yeah.
And asked permission from Winston Churchill, who was...
Prime Minister?
No, he wasn't Prime Minister. He would have been the Home Secretary at this point.
Oh, yeah, okay.
And he sent in a detachment of the Scots Guards. The Scots Guards at that point were in charge of the Tower of London.
Yeah.
So they had a force present at the Tower of London. So they basically asked for volunteers to go and help out with the police incident. And I think it was 21 army personnel went down.
Start up.
This was the first time the police in London had requested help from the army.
Oh, interesting.
So the Scots Guards arrived on scene at about 10 a.m. and they took up position at either end of the street. Because it was still a police incident, but the army were there in support of. The firing continued the gunfire continued for another 2 hours when Winston Churchill himself turned up at the scene to kind of, cool. He wanted to see what was going on. And there's rumours in some of the things I read, they were put down as quotes, but other things said it wasn't quotes.
Right.
That he basically said to them, you can have whatever means necessary you need to stop this. Including, literally...
You want, a tank? What are you going to send down here?
Bearing in mind it's 1911, it wouldn't have been much of a tank, but they did...
Still better than their weapons up there, I bet.
Yeah, they... we'll get on to what they brought in.
Okay.
So the kind of peak of it all came to head at just about, I think it was 12:50, so just before 1 p.m. When it was observed that the building was on fire.
Okay.
The gang still didn't come out, and
how did it catch fire? The police set it on fire.
No, it wasn't set on fire.
Is this
by any official line? It wasn't set on fire, but there was a load of gunfire going on.
Okay.
So it wouldn't have taken much for something to catch light.
You think?
Well, I mean, you think these revolvers, it's not like your encapsulated bullets and everything now. You know, there'd have been sparks and loads of...
Yeah, okay.
And if they've unleashed 400 rounds before 9:30...
Yeah, lot of hot metal going around.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, okay.
So the fire brigade, who were on scene, obviously, requested permission for the police to stop firing so that they could extinguish the blaze. But this was refused.
Oh. Smoke them out.
At 1:30, a second wave of Scots Guards arrived with a Maxim machine gun.
Okay.
So, not quite a tank, but like a pull-along, big, huge gun.
Okay, so I've got in my mind, one of those big... It's circular, and it turns, and they're feeding in the lines of bullets. One of those things.
Something like that, yeah.
Bloody hell!
One of the that would have almost been like a horse-drawn machine gun that they would have pulled into the First World War, that kind of thing.
Christ, that's some serious shit.
It was never used on scene. So over the next hour or so, the shooting continued. This machine gun was on site, but it wasn't used, and the army had brought that in. So on scene at this point, there are 200 police officers, the Home Secretary, who became one of the most successful prime ministers of all time.
Yep.
2 detachments of the Scotch Guards.
Yeah. And
a machine gun, war level machine gun.
Just for these 2 guys.
Well, yeah, they were doing some damage.
Yeah, fair.
So over the next hour, the fire, not the firing, so the actual blaze, increased in intensity to the. And one of the gang was shot by the police as he leaned out the window to get away from the heat of the fire.
Oh.
The other guy refused to come out and burned to death inside.
Oh, that's mental.
So like I say, by the time it had ended, there was... just before this point where it kind of come to a head, they'd also brought in the Royal Horse Artillery, which is the mounted army.
That makes me really sad still. I don't
and 2 13-pound field artillery guns, which are the ones that shoot the huge big shells, the big, a bullet like the size of your arm.
I've never seen one of them.
I'll show you a picture in a minute.
Cool.
So yeah, by the time it had ended and these 2 guys were dead, there was 200 police officers, 2 detachments of the Scots Guards, 2 13-pound field artillery guns, the Royal Horse Artillery Detachment, and the Maxim machine gun, all in Sidney Street, which is a residential area. This was not only the first time that it had ever gotten to this stage on kind of British soil.
Yeah.
It was also the first time it was a police siege was ever caught on camera.
Oh, really?
So there's actual footage of it, of Sidney Street and the army and the police all running into positions. You know that stereotypical olden yip guys running in. And I watched some of the footage just before I came out on YouTube, and it's absolutely incredible.
Oh, I want to see it.
So that there's so many firsts in this thing. This is why I quite liked it.
You love a good first
I do.
something story.
Like I say, it was the first time that they'd ever used the police and the army had colluded. Not colluded, God, had worked together.
Yeah.
The first time they'd drawn artillery and machine guns onto the streets of London. And I think the first time the Home Secretary would have ever turned up at anything like this.
Probably, yeah.
When he left to some jeering from the crowds because they were wanting, there was a load of political faction at the time and stuff like that. Which is funny because he then went on to be Prime Minister twice. Well, it was
quite controversial when they hoisted him into...
Well, it was a save the day type thing.
Well, yeah, but even then it was controversial. There was a lot of people that didn't want him to take that seat when he did.
So I think, is it... so if you go onto YouTube and type in Siege of Sidney Street, there's like a couple of 3.5 minute videos. One of them has no sound.
Okay, cool.
And it's well worth a watch. They're really, really cool.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to give that a go.
So yeah, there's nice. Like I say, there was loads of other wee details and
you probably could have made it into a long story.
I could have. Like, it's one of these things that I thought, oh, that'll be a nice wee story.
I think it's the same with every story. It's like, and all of them can grow arms and legs because there's just so much stuff you could go into. Yeah,
I could have easily stretched that out to half an hour.
Yeah.
And there's this whole thing about Peter the Painter. Was he the head of a gang? Did he run off with the...
I'm sorry, but Peter the Painter is not striking fear into my heart.
No, I mean, the picture of him, and I say picture with air quotes, he looks a scary bastard. And there's all the things like, what happened to the jewellery from the heist? Did they get anything? Were they caught too early? Did these guys try and hide it in Sidney Street? Did they try and get it into the community, or did they try and get it away?
Here's a conspiracy. Peter the Painter was the jeweler's son who was like, nah, there was only $7,000 in there, not the whole hog. He has it.
We can't cast aspersions
I'll do what I want.
Innocent victims here. So yeah, that's my story of Sidney Street. The next time I'm in London with work, I'm going down to Sidney Street and I'm going to take a photo of me outside the residence and I'll stick it up on Twitter. Yeah,
very nice.
Just since I was supposed to be going on the Jack the Ripper tour last week and didn't get to, I'll go and do something that's a bit more Twisted Britain associated.
Nice, I like that. Oh, very good. I enjoyed that. I've never heard about that.
No, it's one of these ones that I actually just went on Google and looked up sieges.
Oh, good shout.
And there's kind of 4 that pop up in the UK. There's obviously the Iranian siege of the Iranian embassy, which I will cover at some point.
Nice, yeah, you do that one.
And there was 2 others, and this one, and the 2 others, I just couldn't find enough information at hand. I think if I looked at them again, I could probably dig enough to get a story out of them.
Yeah.
So maybe I'll do a mini series on sieges.
Nice.
And I'll cover them under my short stories, and then do the long story in the Iranian one.
Nice. Cool.
But yeah, I even managed to finish a pint during talking.
No, very well done.
Nadine's getting very good at keeping talking when she sees me drinking. So, we're going to go and fill our glasses, and it's your turn.
Yep, let's do it.
And that's us back. I've just spent the last couple of minutes showing Nadine the pictures of what a Maxim machine gun was.
Yeah, some serious business.
And what a horse-drawn artillery looked like.
Also serious business.
And to quote, fuck, that looks like it would take 6 horses. I don't think they're quite that big, but big pieces of weapon to have on the streets of London.
In the photo, I think it was like a museum thing, but it looked like there was like 6, at least 4 horses in front of it.
Yeah, 4's nearly 6, yeah. So I've got a new pint and I'm looking forward to this.
Right, ready?
Yep, I'm ready.
I'm expecting a lot of discussion.
Okay. Are you hoping for, because you haven't done enough research, or are you just expecting?
Both.
Right, okay.
So, my story is the story of a man called Gareth Williams.
Doesn't ring a bell, okay.
Okay. It will. You're so going to know this.
Right.
So Gareth Williams was born on the 26th of September 1978, and he was originally from Anglesey in Wales. He spoke Welsh as his first language, and he began studying mathematics part-time at Bangor University while still at secondary school, and he graduated with a first-class degree at the age of 17.
So a smart guy.
Smart cookie.
Yeah.
After gaining a PhD at the University of Manchester, he dropped out from a postgraduate course at St. Catherine's College in Cambridge and took up employment with the GCHQ, which is the government communication headquarters.
Yeah, I was listening to a podcast from GCHQ today.
Oh, cool.
The Infinite Monkey Cage.
Oh,
did
very
one
nice.
About kind of code breaking and everything from there. It
nice.
was cool.
Yeah, so he was involved. Well, I'll get there. So for those of you that don't know, the GCHQ is an intelligence and security organization responsible for providing signals intelligence and information assurance to the government and armed forces of the United Kingdom.
Yeah, they're now like the head of the anti-terrorism unit is based at GCHQ, and they're
serious business.
Yeah, really serious, yeah.
So he was based at GCHQ in Cheltenham, and he worked there in 2001. As an employee of GCHQ, Williams was seconded to the Secret Intelligence Service as well.
Do you want a random fact
also
about
known as MI6?
Yeah. Do you want a random fact about GCHQ?
Yeah.
So, originally set up in the Second World War. And originally had one of the best female-to-male ratios of staffing ever.
Oh, nice.
It was mainly, something like 78% staffed by women.
That's pretty good,
originally.
Isn't it?
And even now, it's almost 50-50.
Nice. Well done, GCHQ.
Not bad.
So he rented a room for a decade in Prestbury in Gloucestershire and was due to return to Cheltenham at the beginning of September 2010 after spending his annual leave in Pimlico,
Sure.
who knows, London, living in a supposed safe house. I found one source that called it like a safe house, like a safe flat kind of thing, because of his work, I think, not because he was under protection.
Oh, I was going to say, so like he hadn't gotten into any...
Oh, no, like he was like living in like a safe house because of the nature of what he was involved in and his work and stuff. That's what I thought anyway from what I read.
Fair enough.
Police visited Williams' home during the afternoon of Monday the 23rd of August 2010 as a welfare check after colleagues noted he had been out of contact for several days. So he hadn't shown up to work, nobody had heard from him, nobody had seen him.
Uh-oh.
So they contacted the police who went round. His decomposing naked remains were found in a red North Face bag.
Well, escalated quite quickly, didn't it?
The bag was padlocked from the outside and the straps were velcroed shut also. Have you heard this? Is it ringing any bells?
I kind of have, yeah.
Because the minute I heard this on the news, I remember this being on the news and being like, what?
Yeah.
Especially because he's MI6, this shit went
I'm not gonna jump in with this story, but I kind of think we know where we're going. Yeah, okay, carry on.
Okay. So the bag was found in the bath of the main bedroom's ensuite bathroom as well. So in a bag, velcroed, padlock shut, in a bathroom. And I thought I remembered that the bathroom door was also locked shut. But I couldn't really find much about that.
Yeah,
so I'm not sure if it was.
He's not that much of a Houdini.
Well, still pretty good though.
Yeah, not bad.
The police had gained entry into his top floor flat in Alderney Street, Pimlico, at around 20 to 5 on Monday, 23rd August. No fingerprints, palm prints, footprints, or traces of Williams' DNA were found on the rim of the bath, the bag zip, or the bag padlock. Ooh.
Yeah, he literally took the noise out. I was going to say words, but the noise out of my mouth. Yeah.
And get this, cherry on top of the cake. A key to the padlock was found inside the bag underneath his body.
Okay, right. Yeah, no,
right.
I do remember this now, yeah.
The coroner, Dr. Fiona Wilcox, said that there were no injuries on his body and no signs that he had been involved in a struggle. His body was also free of alcohol and common recreational drugs.
Just common ones or all of them?
Well, it says common here, so just common.
Yeah,
they didn't go for
variety.
this, like the spicy ones. The Metropolitan Police considered his death suspicious and unexplained.
Yeah, well, no fucking wonder.
And Wilcox, the coroner, vowed to follow the evidence no matter where it led.
Even back into the bag.
It's like a good movie, isn't it, almost?
Yeah.
I will follow this evidence no matter where it leads.
I like that we're taking two crimes and almost exactly a century apart. Let's compare policing here.
Let's go. Right, so the investigation. Williams' date of death was estimated to have been in the early hours of 16th of August, which was about a week before he was found.
And they hadn't noticed they didn't notice he was there at work for a couple of days.
For about a week as well.
So for about a week. So
days,
yeah, okay.
His family believed that crucial DNA was interfered with and that fingerprints left at the scene were wiped off as part of a cover-up. Ooh.
Well, I think that, to me, doesn't scream very good investigation, because if you don't find any fingerprints, he's got fingers.
Well, exactly.
So they've been,
that's
they've been wiped.
Nothing was found on like the rim of the bath or on the bag padlock and shit.
managed to get in the bag in a different room and hop through. Like you're doing a sleeping bag.
Oh dear. Hold on, now I've totally lost my place. Cover up. So Vincent Williams from the Metropolitan Police informed the Westminster Coroner's Court that experts were in agreement that it was impossible for Gareth Williams to have locked himself into the bag.
That seems a fair shout.
Fair.
Yeah.
One of these experts brought in to examine the bag in which Williams' body was found concluded that Williams could not have locked it.
Well,
good job.
So that's what I was going to say earlier. I think I remember this story because was it not sold in the news as he killed himself and locked himself in a bag? And
yeah, pretty much. So I'll get there. So a police spokesman stated that if he was alive, he got into it voluntarily, or if not, he was unconscious and placed in the bag. Also, great, good work. Like, I don't know what third option there would be. The heating in Williams' apartment was found to be turned on, though. So it's been suggested an elevated temperature inside the apartment would have sped up the decomposition of Williams's body. So they thought that actually his time of death would have been more like June or July rather than August, but because the heating had been blasted. But then, yeah, I don't know. I've written that down and then I kind of like kept on I just kind of skipped on past it. But now I'm like, well, surely he would have been at work. But he's on annual leave. Wait, he was on annual leave.
Right. Okay. Because I was going to say if the heating's been turned up and it's been accelerated, then surely it would shorten the time they would estimate he'd been in the bag.
Yeah, hold on. There's a bit of a loophole in what I've written here, isn't there?
I don't like to call you out on that, but
I've just like written it down blindly. Like, yep, that sounds reasonable.
Moving on.
Anyway, the police released an e-fit photo of two people that they were seeking who had been seen to enter the communal entrance of his home. Well, they'd been seen to enter it in June or July.
Right. Okay.
So
yeah. Keep going. You're covering yourself up here.
This is sounding.
I would like to state at this point again, and we've stated it before, that Twisted Britain does not sell itself on facts.
We're just here for fun.
We're here for stories.
There was some DNA found, though. I'm just gonna glide on past this.
It's what you tend to do when I start talking to you.
There was some DNA found on Williams's hand. Okay. But it turned out to be contamination from one of the forensic scientists.
Oh, come on now.
And then the police determined that the couple that they had been seeking had nothing to do with the inquiry, because I think, so the DNA that they found had like a Mediterranean, that's the word that I found, Mediterranean history. I don't know what word it's a Mediterranean DNA.
Yeah, so like, the genealogy of it suggested that somebody was from the
Mediterranean. Yeah, so this couple that they'd seen on CCTV or whatever in the communal entrance in June or July were Mediterranean. So I think that's why they were like, must have been you guys.
And I suppose it's due diligence as well. If they're not people that were living in that building, you would instantly go, right, well, we need to talk to them. Because you would automatically just go, right, we either need to talk to them to see if they are suspects or rule them out of the investigation.
Yeah, so once they found out that the DNA was actually one of the forensic scientists, they dropped that lead because it was his, not theirs.
He had
to make like his company had to make like a full apology to the family.
Tapas for his lunch or something?
I think he might have just been Mediterranean. Soon after the investigation started, the heads of the Secret Intelligence Service, MI6, and Metropolitan Police met to discuss how the police would handle the investigation in light of the top secret nature of Williams's work and who would lead the investigation.
I suppose because they need to then start assessing what was he covering and what
was he working on,
what are we worried about here.
Exactly. So Williams had recently qualified for operational deployment and had worked with US national security agencies and FBI agents.
Was he James Bond?
Might have been.
Yeah, cool.
So he'd been working with them. The US State Department asked that no details of Williams's work should emerge in the inquest. The Foreign Secretary, who at the time was William Hague, signed a public interest immunity certificate authorizing the withholding from the inquest of details of Williams's work and US joint operations.
That's fair enough.
And the FBI also conducted their own investigation into the case.
Wow, so there's something big going on then.
Serious business.
Yeah.
The journalist Duncan Campbell reported that the inquest evidence indicated Williams was one of a team of intelligence officers sent to penetrate US and UK hacking networks. pretty cool.
Yeah.
Pretty cool
he
shit.
He had a pretty good job, didn't he?
Yeah. He had attended the 2010 Black Hat briefings and DEF CON conferences as well. This guy was major. Like, he was, like, super clever. Don't forget he got his undergrad at 2017 in mathematics. That's some crazy shit. Yeah, so whilst he was still at school.
Yeah, so he got... And did it say when he got his PhD, or was he still quite young at the time, I would imagine?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
He had started with SIS, or MI6, in London in spring 2009, and after taking a number of training courses, started on active operational work, is what it was called.
He's a spy.
He's a spy.
Have you just been Googling spies?
I did Google spy.
You do realise you're now on the GCHQ watch list.
Hey. Hey. A few months before his death, he asked to return to GCHQ, though, and get out of CIS, as he disliked the, quote, I don't know if this is a quote from him, but it's just a quote, he disliked the rat race, flash car competitions, and post-work drinking culture that is present at MI6, apparently. Lads. I'd work there. Drinking and MI6.
That's because you're a great lad.
Thanks. He was a keen cyclist and walker, and he just wanted to go back to the countryside, apparently, and he was due to return in September, but then didn't show up.
Yeah, okay.
So, in December 2010, police released further details stating that Williams had visited a number of bondage websites, although at the later inquest it was stated that these visits were sporadic and isolated, and accounted for only a small proportion of the time he spent online.
Who's not accidentally ended up there?
Oh, is it accidental?
Well, who's not accidentally?
Don't call me out on air. It was also noted. It was also noted at the inquest that he never visited any website devoted to claustrophilia, which is a sexual interest in being confined in small spaces. He'd never Googled that or looked into that. So
it wasn't. So they're kind of just ruling out it wasn't a sexual fetish. That he was...
Well, that's what they are getting at. Yeah. So evidence given by Williams's former landlady was brought up at the inquest. It was his former landlady in Cheltenham. She says that he managed... He'd woken her husband up one night screaming for help.
Okay.
Because he'd managed to tie himself to his bed and required assistance in releasing himself. The testimony that she gave was that Williams had claimed at the time that he'd done it just to see if he could free himself, and that he promised not to try this again.
So I had to take myself away from the microphone because I started laughing when you said release himself. Like, on you go.
Don't sully my story.
I think he's sullied as it is.
Nothing further had been said about the incident since between Williams and his landlady. So it was like in her mind, it was like a one-time occurrence that was like a bit weird, but they just kind of left it alone.
What a wonderful landlady!
I know, she's like, just to go, whatever. Right, we've all been there, son.
Oh, look, we'll untie you this once, but it says in your tenancy agreement that you get one shot only.
One shot. There was also reportedly £20,000 worth of women's clothing found within his flat. And with that kind of discovery and release of that information, there was loads of rumours circulating that Williams was a cross-dresser. So, like, the picture they started kind of painting of him in the media was that he was, like, this, like, fetishist and, like, into eroticism and, like, the darker kind of world, and it probably was a sexual thing, and kind of started, like, dirtying him a bit with that.
That's really upsetting, actually, because what somebody does in their own home is their business.
Yeah, 100%.
And if he's got 20 grand's worth of women's clothes, you say 20 grand?
20 grand.
He obviously had good taste as well.
Well, yeah. Well, this is the thing, is, like, apparently there's witness statements as well that people saw him shopping in, like, quite upper class, like, women's clothing shops around London and stuff. But, like, if you want to go home and wear a really fucking nice dress, then power to you.
Yeah, everybody's Saturday's their own.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that's...
We don't talk in a twisted podcast without, having a few dark secrets ourselves. Nadine
Stop calling me out!
Nadine sometimes dresses up in women's clothes as well.
Only sometimes. Stop fat-shaming me.
There's so many things I could do, but I'm going to be good.
Moving on. 2 experts were unable to lock themselves in a similar bag, despite making 400 attempts to do so.
What a great day at the office. Like, gents, if I give you this...
Here's a bag.
This bag and this padlock, can you get in it, lock it, close it, and keep the key inside?
Underneath your body.
Could you try it 400 times, please?
Just to make sure. So they couldn't do it though. 400 times they tried. They couldn't do it.
I have a North Face bag, like hold all in the house that I may try and get inside later on.
Next week, a Twisted Britain special will come to you live from the cell, and let's hear Nadine and Bob lock themselves in a bag. So apparently one of the experts though stated that there was a small chance that Williams had managed the feat himself.
It'd be an impressive feat.
I mean, maybe he was off work for that week because it took him a week to get in that bag.
Yeah, but the bath and all, nah.
Yeah, it's mental, isn't it?
There's no chance.
So pathologist Dr. Richard Shepherd stated it was more likely that Williams was alive when he got into the bag due to the, and this is, again, I think this is shit, due to the difficulty of arranging a corpse in the position Williams' body was found in. And then I've put in brackets, fetal position, ? Because I found records saying that he was just in the fetal position curled up in the bag.
Well, you'd need to be.
Well, how hard is it to put a body in the fetal position?
Well, I suppose it depends if rigor mortis is set in.
Well, then it's hard to put them in any bloody position, isn't it?
Yeah.
But if they were still, if you just killed them, you're like, shove him in the bag.
Yeah, if you, Or
if he's just unconscious, shove him in the bag.
Yeah.
It's not that hard, is it? Just tucks all up.
But he had no signs of like how he'd been killed on him then.
No struggle.
So he...
No injuries, no nothing.
Are you going to get onto, was there like a definitive cause of death?
No.
Okay. Well, I asked because, like, if you'd shot somebody and then got the body and then folded it into a bag,
yeah,
you could probably do that. But obviously, there'd be evidence of him being shot, or if he'd been strangled, you'd see bruising or ligature marks or something. Whereas if he's asphyxiated in the bag, it kind of suggests that he's either got in willingly or been forced into the bag. And even forced into the bag, you'd see some sign of a struggle,
but
surely.
Surely you could, like, knock somebody out.
Yeah.
And then put them in the bag, and then they just suffocate in there. And, like, this bag was a tight squeeze. There's not much room for struggling, and once you wake up in there. It was a tight squeeze.
And not that I'm product placing for North Face at all, but if they are ever listening and want to send me stuff, I'll take it.
Yeah, I'll take it too.
But those holdalls that North Face make and Burgess make and all these big out are waterproof. Like, they are.
Oh yeah.
They're designed to be used in extreme environments. So I would imagine once you're in them, they're fairly airtight.
Yeah, pretty much. And I just remembered that I've got a show and tell for you. So I saved a Google image, from like an article where somebody's like made an approximation of how tightly the bag was locked.
So we'll put this up on all of our feeds.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's
locked. You can't even get a finger out of there.
No.
How are you meant to lock that padlock yourself?
That
I guess
is
you could,
also
rip
definitely
it.
the bag I have.
Bring it up next week, please. You couldn't even get your fingers out of there, you know?
We'll do our first ever video online of me trying to put Nadine in a bag next week.
I'm so keen for it. I'm so gonna let you. As long as you don't put the key in with me and then trap me in the bag.
I promise not to padlock you in.
Yeah, that wouldn't be cool. Fetal position is where we've gotten to. So I think that's bullshit. I think that's a really shitty statement to make. Because like, oh well, it's more than likely he was alive because you couldn't put a dead body in the fetal position. Oh yeah, that was the argument. So no, but if he'd just been newly dead, rigor mortis takes a little while. I think you could.
I would think so as well.
I'm not going to test that one. Let's not test that.
No, we'll test if we can get you in the bag, not dead, because I don't want to end the podcast at 11 episodes. It's a really weird number.
So another pathologist stated that Williams would have been overcome by hypercapnia, which is elevated carbon dioxide levels, after only 2 or 3 minutes in the bag, because it's just so small and airtight.
And airtight, yeah, absolutely.
Williams' family remained certain that there was foul play involved and said that they believed that a secret service agency was involved in his death.
Well, he knew them all.
Oh yeah? Well, he must have known a few from around the office.
And he's probably pissed somebody off.
Well, I'll get there eventually with with a good conspiracy. After 3 years of investigation, an inquest in 2012 ruled Williams' death as accidental on his part.
No.
So, though they believed that Williams' death was unnatural and likely to have been... Though the coroner believed that Williams' death was unnatural and likely to have been criminally mediated, the coroner was satisfied that on the balance of probabilities that Gareth was killed unlawfully, but there was insufficient evidence to give a verdict of unlawful killing.
It almost screams, like you said, screams movie, doesn't it? Like,
yeah, it does, doesn't it?
We're just gonna have to let this go because there wasn't any evidence. But to me, the first thing I ask is the lack of evidence is not obviously not evidence, but the lack of evidence is a screaming siren to me.
It's the fact that the coroner, though, again and again is like, no way, and they're like, nah, well, seems like he did it accidentally.
New coroner, please.
Shut up. The coroner is Wilcox again, by the way, good old Wilcox, who will follow the evidence no matter where it leads.
Yes, he will.
Yes,
she will.
She concluded that another party placed the bag containing Williams' body into the bath, and like the quote I've got is based on probability. They also locked the bag, to which I've put brackets. No shit.
Well, it was locked when they found it.
Well, no, that like the party that placed the bag containing Williams' body into the bath probably also locked the bag.
Well, he didn't. No matter whether the key was inside, he couldn't have locked it from the inside.
No way. The coroner was critical of MI6 for failing to report Williams as missing for 7 days, which caused extra anguish and suffering for his family and led to the loss of forensic evidence. The coroner rejected suicide, interest in bondage or cross-dressing, or autoerotic activity being involved in his death. She said his visits to bondage websites only occurred intermittently and were not frequent enough to indicate an active interest.
And even if it does, it doesn't
say...
Yeah,
like, so what if you're interested in bondage? It doesn't mean you're going to climb in a bag and die.
No, but good on the...
coroner.
Good on the coroner for saying specifically this doesn't have an influence on the outcome of this.
Yeah, 100%. She also condemned leaks about cross-dressing as a possible attempt at media manipulation. So that's a pretty bold statement to be making. Good
old media.
Wilcox was also highly critical of the Metropolitan Police's Counter-Terrorism Command, known as SO15, SO15, who I think he worked for and stuff.
Yeah, and they are... I'm going to have a quick... while you're talking, I'm going to have a quick look, but I think they've got, like... They're the top level.
Mm-hmm. She was critical of them because they'd failed to tell senior investigating officers before the inquest began that there were 9 memory sticks and other property in Williams's SIS office. So they didn't mention that evidence to the inquest.
But he didn't have anything in the house.
Well, he had property and stuff in the house, but that was extra evidence.
There was nothing that, like, they're saying he had memory sticks and stuff.
Well, it was all locked down. You couldn't release that information.
No,
like,
okay, yeah.
What he was doing because the
no, but I wondered if
no.
They would maybe say like he had. Of course, they wouldn't say he had classified information in his house because he wouldn't be allowed to have that.
No, you wouldn't be allowed to have
okay.
it. SO15 also failed to take formal statements when interviewing SIS officers. The coroner said the possible involvement of SIS staff in the death was a legitimate line of inquiry for the police.
So SO15 is Counter-Terrorism Command. Counter-Terrorism Command, CTC, or SO15, is the Specialist Operations Branch within the London Met Police Service.
Shit. So she turns around, she says possible involvement by SIS or MI6, whatever you want to call them, staff in his death was a legitimate line for inquiry. And so, her finding, Dr. Fiona Wilcox, good on you, prompted a reinvestigation by the Metropolitan Police, which lasted a further 12 months, which officers said that they were allowed unprecedented access to the serving MI6 staff following strong criticism at the inquest of the spying agency's actions following the death of Williams.
Wow, that's a big statement.
Massive.
Yeah.
Metropolitan Police Deputy Assistant Commissioner Martin Hewitt announced that despite a re-examination of all evidence and the investigation of new leads, no definitive answers had been obtained as to the cause of Williams's death, and the most probable scenario was that he had died alone in his flat in Pimlico, central London, as a result of accidentally locking himself inside the bag, so they found the same verdict anywho's.
Yeah.
Bullshit.
Not surprising.
So, here's the conspiracy.
Is this a Nadine conspiracy?
No.
Or is this a...
conspiracy.
Right, okay.
So, and it's a good one because it's it's not just like some guy on the internet. In September and October 2015, Boris Karpachov, we'll go with Boris, a former KGB agent who defected from Russia and who now lives in Britain, stated during interviews that sources in Russia have claimed that the Russian Foreign Intelligence Service, also known as the SVR, was responsible for Williams' murder. According to Boris, the SVR tried and failed to blackmail Williams into becoming a double agent using compromising photographs of a sexually explicit nature.
I really thought we'd get more than 11 episodes out before we became a target for the Russians. But thank you, Nadine. Thank you very much.
Well, and then it said that so this Boris guy is saying that, sorry to drop you in at Boris, mate. So he's saying that they tried to blackmail Williams with these compromising photos. And then I saw one story, but I think it was an unreliable paper that I'm not going to name.
Don't. No, please don't.
But I think it was them. They did a whole story about that. Apparently, these spy, a KGB spy couple, tricked Williams into going back to his flat, and then got him drugged, and then took weird photos with him, and then they were like, "Oh, we're gonna blackmail you and send it to all your family and employers and stuff, unless you become a double agent for us." But whether true or not, he did not. Apparently,
I've had that email. Not become a secret agent, but we've got compromising photos of you.
Serious?
Yeah. I had an email a couple of weeks ago that says that we've got a webcam of you. How do you put this politely? Wanking.
Oh.
To which I haven't personally responded to, but I know I have a mate who responded to it saying, "Please send it. Here's my mum's email address."
God, I need to stop emailing you and your friends.
Yeah, you do. And I need to put a bit of gaffer tape on my webcam.
Most people do. I've got blue tack on mine. Not for that
very good.
specific scenario, but just because people can hack your webcam and see what you're up to.
What are you up to that you don't mind?
I don't know, just walking around and just being...
In your 20 grand's worth of women's clothing, that's what it is.
Sitting with my laptop on my stomach watching Netflix late at night with all my double chins out. Don't take a photo of that, thanks.
To be honest, if anybody wants that photo of me lying watching Netflix, I'll send them it.
Oh dear. So apparently in response to them trying to blackmail him, Williams apparently claimed that he knew the identity of a Russian spy inside the GCHQ, and apparently he was called Orion. Orion.
We're not even doing Nadine's Word of the Week this week, but we'll go...
Orion.
like
I
Orion.
got excited. I saw the word, I thought of Oreo, and then I added an N. Karpichkov, also known as Boris, claimed that Williams... his name is actually Boris, I'm not being rude.
No, I got that, yeah.
Boris claimed that Williams' threat meant that the SVR then had no alternative but to exterminate him in order to protect their agent inside the GCHQ. Regarding the cause of death, Karpichkov claimed that the SVR killed Williams by an untraceable poison introduced into his ear.
Wow. There's loads of stories about untraceable poisons, and that's
it's a big one, isn't it?
Yeah,
they used to
one of the Sherlock Holmes ones
with umbrellas. Oh, very. Oh, of course, because your body just Okay.
Yeah, that was a Sherlock Holmes one. It was an insulin. I'm sure it was in the armpit.
Yeah, that's good. Actually,
so you'd never find the bruising, and the body would reset afterwards.
Wasn't it a big KGB thing? They'd have sharp umbrella spikes that had poison on the end. Beep, and they'd get you in the leg as they walk past you, and you wouldn't even feel it because it was so sharp. That's the noise.
That's the official noise.
Yeah.
To the man out there that didn't like our mouth snaps, that's Nadine doing an actual noise.
Sounds. Anyway, whether he was murdered by the KGB or not, or himself, or somebody else, whatever, Williams was buried at, Corin will be mad at me because I can't do Welsh, Ynyswen Cemetery.
I'm absolutely not going to correct you on this. Carry on.
in Valley, Anglesey, on 26th September 2010, following a private funeral service at the Bethel Chapel in Holyhead, attended by his family, friends, former colleagues, and the intelligence services, and also by the head of SIS, Sir John Sawyers, even went. So, his sister Sari, who was a physiotherapist in Chester, described Williams as the perfect big brother who was always on hand to proffer advice or pay for dainty finger sandwiches at the Ritz on her trips to London. His passions were the mountains, fell running and cycling. He was strong, fit and muscular and loved the outdoor life and climbing expeditions with his father. His closest friends in London described him as a laugh, someone to watch DVDs with or to meet for coffee and cake in Knightsbridge. So he sounded like a really nice guy.
He sounds like a guy I'd like to meet.
Yeah,
to be honest.
Like a really just like a really seriously smart guy, amazing job, good wee pal, good big brother, you know.
I suppose the kind of...
And they'll just never know. Nobody, well, unless somebody knows.
Well, somebody does know. That's the thing about these sort of things. That somebody doesn't die in a bag with no fingerprints in a bath.
Mental. No
without
fingerprints,
somebody knows.
No fingerprints, no palm prints, no footprints, no DNA.
What? I mean, it's... When you started the story, I was like, I've never heard that name before, and but now as you got into it, I won't forget the name now because it's a really good story. The kind of things I was thinking there while you were talking just at the end was about the coroner ordering another investigation into it.
Yeah.
What a horrific time for his family.
Oh yeah.
Because they've gone through 3 years originally.
Yeah, and then an extra year.
Where
they're hoping, that something's actually going to be done. Because they've been saying since the start, this is like a Secret Services cover-up. This is bullshit. Like, how is there no... Like, if you're saying that he did it himself accidentally because he wanted to try and escape from a bag or something, or he was also eroticizing or whatever. Like,
and even if he was, if it is... Do you know what? Even if it is accidental murder... No, sorry.
Bathroom.
Accidental suicide, where he has been a very clean human being and there is no fingerprints in his bath and he's decided to get into the bag. I'm playing devil's advocate here entirely. If he's managed to get in that bag by himself and he's had an accidental death and that's the end of it, then that's fine. But then if there's conspiracy theories going about, it almost feels like it's not... There'll be no end to that.
No, never. No.
You're never going to find it. It's like my Mull Mysteries one last week.
Yeah.
There's too many questions for it to ever be answered.
It's sad, isn't it? And that's why I wanted to round off with that nice little bit about him as a person rather than him as a mystery. Like, he was an actual person. He had an actual life. He had friends, family that cared about him deeply and clearly
wanted to do something with his intelligence by
100%.
joining the GCHQ.
Something really cool, really good, you know.
Yeah, I mean, if you end up
for our country,
if you end up with a degree at 17, then
in mathematics,
my God, you're destined for big things.
Oh yeah, shame, isn't it? And he was, I think, 31 when he died.
That's a while ago for me, and you've still to get there.
Yeah.
But it's really young.
Sad, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I know I laughed a lot during it because it's like, ooh, spies, ooh, James Bond, ooh, conspiracy, but...
I know we've said this before, and what we're recording when we're doing these podcasts is our chat on stories that interest us, and we record them because we hope other people enjoy them as well. We're never making fun of anybody.
No, we'd never poke fun at it.
Especially not a victim and a man of that intelligence. And anytime we would ever think poke fun's the wrong word is the perpetrators.
Yeah, 100%. And like,
and
police work sometimes, and just stupid statements and weird facts and crazy things that are just like unbelievable.
That was great.
Thank you.
Do you know, I loved that because I remember the story, but it was...
it's one of my favourite. I remember it being on the news.
Well, it's funny because I only started having my proper true love of true crime in the last kind of maybe 4 or 5 years. Probably since you and I started talking about it, actually. I probably had your general level of interest before that, of bits and pieces.
I think most people like
we get so swamped with things, stories in the media that come and then disappear within a couple of days that when you read something like that, you read the headline, the basis of the story, and then it goes away and you never hear about it again. Whereas something like hearing the actual facts on it, it just kind of makes you think, wow.
Mad, isn't it?
It is mad, yeah.
One. But yeah, it was always on my list that I was going to do at some point.
That's cool. I like that. I really did. So thank you everybody much for listening.
Thanks.
Once again, putting up with us for an hour. Ish. We have our discussion group on Facebook that has been good fun recently. We've had We had our first meme this week, which I would love more of. I love a meme.
Yeah, I love a good meme. I was trying desperately to find an equally funny one to post back, and I just couldn't top it.
Never stress for a meme. It either works or it doesn't.
Yeah.
We've had a couple of posts about stories that have come out this week that have been really interesting.
Yeah, been really good. I don't know how I'd feel about sleeping in his jail cell.
Yeah, I would like to say that the comment I put up today came up as Twisted Britain, and I meant to comment it as myself.
Yeah.
I'm not saying anybody out there should find their way into a police cell, but you don't have to pay £75 to end up in one. I wouldn't sleep in it.
If you want to know what jail cell we're talking about, join our discussion group.
Indeed, please do. You'll find us by searching on Facebook for Twisted Britain Discussion Group.
Now spelt correctly.
It is now spelled correctly. We are on all the social media platforms. We're on Instagram.
Twisted Britain.
We're on Facebook.
Twisted Britain.
And we're on Twitter.
Twisted Britain.
And we're getting better at it, I think.
Getting there slowly but surely.
And to all of you that are already following us on all of the social medias, thank you very much for following us. It means a lot to see 100 people that are interested in our nonsense.
And feel free to comment away. We love hearing from you guys and knowing what you think about things, and just even your funny little comments and jokes and stuff. It means a whole lot when you guys reach out. It's the nicest thing ever.
We mentioned a couple of weeks ago about Marianne in New Zealand, who her and her son have been listening to us, and she sent us a picture where she was listening to it, and I've never been more jealous of a photo in my life. I love we both love listening to podcasts, which is why we started it. Unfortunately, most of my podcast listening to is on the M8 on the way into Glasgow.
Yeah, I listen to mine on the way into work a lot as well.
Which is not as pretty as your photo, but thank you for sharing that with us. And I hope your son finds something else to look at in this episode.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks so much for listening, everybody.
We'll see you again next time.
Bye.
Bye.